Chapter 1. Hired. My name is Galen Sato, EID 478-00. What position do you hold at the agency? I'm a level 4 criminal psychologist. Galen Sato sat at a cold metal table, similar to ones he's occupied plenty of times in the past. He was cold and unwelcoming, absolutely intimidating, in contrast to his usually upbeat personality that was absent in this interview. Your resume is excellent, the interviewer complimented him, but Galen remained silent. Dual degrees in psychology and criminology, a PhD in forensic psychology. Her eyes scrolled down the paper before picking them back up. Provide a brief explanation of your work history prior to being employed by the agency. The interviewer kept a strong eye contact with Galen, but she would periodically glance back at his file. I spent a decade working with internal criminals that were considered threats on a national level. And what do you do now for the agency as a criminal psychologist? The interviewer asked him, and Galen smirked in a swift micro-movement before dropping his expression back to a deadpan stare. I evaluate war criminals currently being held prisoner clandestinely. Shit, I am dyslexic. Let's disclaim that right now. I am dyslexic. I study their histories and actions and frequently monitor them through periodic assessments. My duty is to determine any possible underlying ailments and disorders that were previously unknown, undocumented. It's your job to record said information? Correct. And who is your supervisor? Dr. David DeWitt. Galen arrived to work around 6 a.m., knowing he was going to be interviewed at least once today. DeWitt informed him that he'd potentially run through a series of interviews should he be chosen to move forward. Galen looked up at the ceiling with his eyes in a deadpan stare. The ceiling was concrete like the floor. Underground was where his unit was stationed since he worked in the International Criminal Ward, ICW, a very secret hush-hush department where the United States kept prisoners of war, POW, within borders, unbeknownst to the American people or anyone else in the world. Galen was a little curious what all the hubbub was about, but he also didn't care. In his left ear was a ringing noise. He had understanding that when your ears ring, you should try and stop it, that it's not good for your hearing. But he welcomed the sound. It was numbing, and he was willing to be bothered by anything after several hours of waiting. The hallway he sat along was endless, but 60 feet of the ceaseless stretch was at least 100 employees in his department, sitting against both walls of the hall. They were all waiting to be interviewed, or were waiting to be told the next step. Galen brought his eyes down with his face to a forward position, where he took a peek at the man across from him. The slightly older man's dark blonde hair was bending against the wall that his head rested on as he snored in a deep sleep. It reminded Galen of the hours he spent sitting in this hallway since the woman who interviewed him released him to his seat. These discipline games the FBI played tested Galen's patience, but he learned obedience was life's greatest asset. He couldn't help but notice that all the agents around him looked within the same age range. Galen was a younger looking man for someone in their 30s. His body was smaller than the others at the agency. Those who not known him assumed him to be fresh meat, but Galen couldn't care for any of their objective smirks, for those who knew him as he was. Cold. Sato, an older man wearing a white coat and clipboard in hand, approached Galen. The older man signaled Galen to follow him, so Galen stood up and followed down the hall into a new testing area that was dim lit. The assessor closed the door behind them. Days passed since the interviewing process, and Galen felt a weird knowing something was about to happen. He reflected on the endless hours of gruesome footage the agency sat him through as part of the next interview. It was sickening as it was evil, but Gallon feared no evil. Obscure and twisted in his mind, phased, he was not. When he was alone in ominous space, one could see it in the carvings of his face. His heavy, drooping eyes made it obvious something dark festered within him. He never allowed... That wasn't necessary. He'd never allow anyone to see it, as he'd always greet people with a charming composure that hosted an attractive warmth. No one understood he was sick in the head. No one except certain members of the agency who approved Gallon to use his preferred unethical methods of interrogation. Gallon watched the pendulum swing as he was handed at random an envelope by someone who walked past him with all disregard. He hadn't even looked up to see who. His focus went straight to opening the manila package. Inside was a stack of papers stapled together that held instructions for the next steps as he was selected for the job. "This isn't child's play, Sato." The stoic expression never shifted in the lightly wrinkled, graying man. "I'm not a child," Gallon reassured his superior. "It's a perilous position the agency wishes you to fulfill." "Should I be afraid?" Gallon was genuine in his question. "No, but you must consider the word perilous in all its extremities." Dr. DeWitt took a deep breath before breaking eye contact with Gallon to look at all the paperwork he held in his hands as he organized the files between stacks on the desk. Gallon waited for Dr. DeWitt to continue, but another aged gentleman entered the room. This man was clad in a micro-plaid blue shirt and recognized Dr. DeWitt as their familiar. His reddened eyes turned to Gallon. "Sato, I've heard." The man addressed him, and Gallon returned with a single nod. The man introduced himself. "I'm Officer Lowry." "CIA. Why?" "Take a seat, Sato." Lowry signaled him, and Gallon sat in one of the chairs in front of DeWitt's wooden station. "Onboarded?" Lowry looked to DeWitt for an answer, but DeWitt shook his head as he continued organizing the files. "Sato." Lowry took a breath. "This case study you'll take on is one like none other you, and possibly anyone else, ever will." Gallon was unmoved as Lowry continued. "You must be absolutely confident in being fully committed to this role." Gallon was not confused, where he worked for the FBI for several years now. He's been undercover on occasion, but this neediness DeWitt and Lowry expressed only piqued his interest. How could this position possibly be so special? "It depends when I'm being assigned." Lowry nodded to DeWitt, who just finished separating the stacks of papers. He handed one stack to Gallon. "This case has been a long one running, but we finally gathered enough data to be confident that we found our Upriser." Gallon's never heard that term before, but never spoke unless spoken to. DeWitt's aged eyes studied Gallon's face as he continued. "She's one of the few people on this planet we call an Upriser." Gallon was briefed on the job, why it was important, extremely dangerous, explained the repercussions, the task was irreversible and will be a lifelong intrusion. The only way out was death. Gallon low-key was intrigued by the whole thing and agreed. He disregarded how unethical the entire plan was. "Who's this so important person that the CIA needs to collaborate with FBI?" "Creek Adlau," Lowry informed him. The CIA agent explained Creek's history and why they are so dangerous. They are capable of producing devastating outcomes. Creek. Gallon has shown Creek's profile, and Creek is not what he expected. Creek is a young woman, a bit chubby, with a sweet smile. Gallon asked, what exactly did Creek do? "What's her crime?" Lowry shook his head. She's done nothing, but she is a person of interest. DeWitt cut in. We will disclose to you all information necessary, but first we must make sure you're the right candidate for the job, and that you are truly committed to this mission. Galen nodded before being excused. The head of the Upriser unit, CIA Lowry, looked to DeWitt with skepticism. You trust a psychopath? The lead psychologist of the Upriser unit, FBI DeWitt, responded with ease. Of course. He's unfazed, and she is swift to pick up any micro movement. Not just anyone can handle this job. We need someone completely unreadable to intrude her thoughts. As Galen walked past strangers in uniform at the headquarters, his face dropped the fake charisma into a dead man's stare. The lead CIA, Lowry, screened Galen one last time to ensure this was the right choice, anxious by the fact Galen is a psychopath. Galen explained a rundown of why he was the perfect candidate for the job to Lowry. He wanted this position not only because it interested him, but he'd keep it to himself that the high payout for life was his heavy incentive. Galen explained the inner workings of psychopathy, and how him being one benefited the agenda of the CIA. The thought of taking on this mission of connecting with the target honestly excites me. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi. Since real life is so boring anyway, I might as well do something interesting while I'm breathing. Galen reassured Lowry. Then understand what an upriser entails. Lowry started a PowerPoint, which showed the face of an old man dressed in a calm, loose clothing. This is Anthony Craw, Lowry revealed to Galen. He was our last upriser. Galen waited a second before asking a question. Where is he now? He passed away from old age a few years back. DeWitt is the lead psychologist of the unit and spent 43 years working with Craw. Since we don't live forever and DeWitt is aging, it's time to connect to the next upriser. And that will require a master psychologist working with them for life. Galen waited anxiously for Lowry to finish, and for a new lead to take DeWitt's place after he passes or retires. Galen felt a power rush from knowing that would be him. Lowry continued. Uprisers. Lowry smirked. Think Martin Luther King. Think Hitler. Mao Zedong, Cleopatra, Joan of Arc. Lowry chuckled. And then add a subconscious understanding of quantum mechanic physics paired with the tappable knowledge of all the secrets of the universe. Galen's eyebrows furrowed as he tried to take what sounded like a joke seriously, but Lowry could feel that energy off the young man. I'm serious. Lowry meant it. Okay, so what am I supposed to do? Maintain her mental health? Lowry smirked. Usually, what us in Russia have been doing the last 200 years was keeping these people captive. Totally underground, never to see the light of day. The problem is this route is ineffective. We can't force out of them information we need. And when torture is used, they just take it. Galen raised an eyebrow as Lowry continued. DeWitt made it clear after years of back and forth arguments between us. If the upriser can't be free, then we don't deserve shit. Which is the only information Craw gave us of any value. 65 years of bare minimum, constant battles with this man. Lowry shook his head. All he truly helped us with was identifying the only other existing US upriser, in exchange for trying a different procedure of extracting information. When Lowry revealed this, Galen leaned in to better understand, as this story enticed him. Lowry swallowed. Select few countries have uprisers. They are born at random across the globe. They usually are always held captive and studied. Craw laid out for us an extremely elaborate plan, how to target and capture Creek without disturbing her normalcy. He had advanced our understanding of technology just for us to be able to examine and extract from Creek with her being totally unaware. Kra explained this plan of action from every single angle that it was determined after years to be the best course of action for the unit to pursue. Galen was handed a manila folder. Lowry said one last thing. Before you open the contents of this folder, you must sign that you agree to take on this mission in its entirety, and that you will perform what is expected of you that was explained to you by DeWitt. I'm not afraid of anything, Galen reassured Lowry. He signed the contract that guaranteed his possible betrayal would result in his assassination. I understand psychopaths do not fear, Lowry nodded his head. But don't you dare underestimate Creek Adlow, Lowry reinforced to Galen, which made Galen feel a bit strange. Lowry ended their conversation with one last piece of information. Not only is she an Upriser, Lowry swallowed, she is also functionally insane. Galen's eyes narrowed at the statement.